Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to this EUA webinar on the environmental sustainability of learning and teaching. This webinar is based on two elements of EUA work that has recently been conducted. One of these elements is an EUA learning and teaching thematic peer group on the same topic, the environmental sustainability of learning and teaching. The other element is a very recent EUA survey on the topic of greening in higher education institutions. Now, the survey results are not out yet, so you will get an exclusive sneak peek into some selected survey results at today's webinar. I should also like to mention right at the beginning that this webinar is but one in a series of webinars and expert voices that are organized as part of EUA's ongoing so-called Green Week, which is being organized in parallel with the EU Green Week, which also runs this very same week. Right at the beginning, a couple of technical remarks. You have a couple of ways of interacting with us. On the one hand, you do have the chat, which you probably have noticed already. Yes, I already see a couple of comments and greetings in the chat. In there, please note down any technical issues, any greetings or more general remarks, or share your experiences. But on the other hand, you also have the Q&A section. If you look a little bit to the right of the chat section, there we would like you to address all your questions to us, to the speakers, any content-related questions that we can then later pick up during the Q&A with our speakers after the presentations have taken place. On the very right side, next to the chat and the Q&A, you will also see a section called Handouts. We have a couple of resources and links in there provided for you, which you might find interesting. And finally, I would also like to mention that this webinar is recorded, and all of you who have signed up for this webinar will automatically receive the link to the recording and to the presentations from our presenters from today after the webinar has taken place. You will get this by email, but should you ever want to come back to the recording of the webinar, it will remain available on EUA's YouTube channel. That's it for me for the very beginning. I would like to jump right into it and ask my colleague Alison Morris-Rowe from EUA to take the stage, because she will present to you a couple of highlights from the recently conducted EUA survey on greening in higher education institutions, which I mentioned. This survey will also frame the discussions in this webinar a bit and generally provide a couple of very interesting insights on what institutions are doing to green their activities. Alison, over to you.
Hi, Helene. Thanks very much for introducing me. So just to start off by telling you a little bit about EUA. So the goal of EUA is to ensure that the independent voice of European universities is heard. As you can see from the slide here, we have over 800 members who are higher education institutions from 48 European countries. You can see them all on the map there. And we also have 33 national university associations as members also. We play a crucial role in the Bologna process and also in shaping European policies and initiatives. And in terms of what we offer to our members, then this ranges from mutual learning activities to opportunities to exchange best practices and to get involved in European projects. So as Helene said, this webinar is being framed by a survey that we carried out recently. So I'll just ask for the next slide, please. Okay, I think just one slide before that. Thank you. So before I tell you about the kind of practical details about the survey, I'm just going to tell you about why we decided to conduct such a survey in the first place. So I suppose, needless to say, higher education institutions are extremely important actors in the transition towards carbon neutrality and generally sustainable societies and economies. So we decided to conduct this survey because we wanted to gather evidence of what was happening on the ground in higher education institutions across Europe, because we knew so much was going on but had no evidence of it really. And we want to use this data then to, I suppose, to plan further EU activities in this field, but also to inform future policies on this area on a European level. So I've just noted down here 2 policy initiatives that we're particularly interested in. For example, at the end of this year, there is the Council recommendation on education for environmental sustainability. And we're really looking forward to getting involved in this process and to underlining the crucial role of universities in greening. There's also the Education for Climate Coalition, which is currently being developed. And this will be an online platform which pledges for action on a collective and on an individual level. So the coalition will mobilize the education and training community, including universities in Europe, to work towards achieving a carbon neutral and sustainable European Union in connection with the Green Deal, of course. So that's why we decided to carry out this survey. Now I can tell you a little bit about the survey itself. So on the next slide, you'll find out a little bit more about this. So we carried out the survey this year in April and May, and we were overwhelmed by the amount of responses we got, almost 400 in fact. But as you can see from the map here and the slide, we had 300 responses from the European higher education area, which was a fantastic result. We asked about many things in this survey. We wanted to find out, for example, about activities that were being carried out, of course. We also wanted to find out about strategies, policies, institutions, involvement in networks and alliances, for example, as well as enablers, challenges and the main drivers of greening. But I'll tell you more about that later on, and I'm going to hand back the stage, shall I say, to Helene.
Thank you very much, Alison. Right on to the next pillar of this webinar. As I mentioned before, this webinar is also based on the work of an EUA Learning and Teaching thematic peer group on the topic of environmental sustainability of learning and teaching. Just very quickly, some background on what this means. The EUA Learning and Teaching thematic peer groups have been organized each year in cohorts since 2017. They all consist of a selected group of EUA member universities. They're always dedicated to various topics in the field of learning and teaching. So each group, of which we organize typically 3 to 4 per year, is dedicated to one particular topic. The groups identify challenges, innovative practices, and lessons learned, and they consist of peers from various universities all over the European higher education area. And this webinar is based on the results of one particular group, which was organized in 2020. You will find the full report of this group available online. You can find the link in the presentation, but we have also put it in the Handouts section. So I will not give you a lot of details on the report, just the most crucial points to give you a bit of an appetite to read the full report. What is particularly interesting about this group work is that it has developed a quadrant of 4 scenarios or stages representing the evolution in institutional adoption of education for sustainable development. And the group argues that each institution can place itself in one of these 4 scenarios. The report also argues that a combination of high commitment and high capacity in implementing education for sustainable development will lead to what the group terms integrated impact. This is the bright green category called integrated impact. So the 4 scenarios move from low commitment and low capacity towards high commitment and high capacity. That's the desired state of integrated impact. And after this, some institutions might experience what the group termed declining support, where you do have high capacity, but already low or lowered commitment. And these are scenarios that can characterize common stages of institutional development to education for sustainable development. And These stages enable a more nuanced view of how and when a particular practice of an institution is likely to have a meaningful impact, not only on the institution itself, but also on its various actors. Let's have a quick look at the 4 stages. Let's start with low commitment and low capacity. And the report argues that most institutions will find in themselves, at least in this category, with pockets of practice. This means there is low institutional commitment and low staff capacity, so practice and education for sustainable development is restricted to only committed staff or teams, for example, a small sustainability team or a volunteering team of staff or students. Key factors or key characteristics of this stage are that an institutional strategy is absent, or it is there but not being acted upon. There is no or weak requirement for sustainability in the curriculum. And other factors are that there is no dedicated staff time to support the adoption of education for sustainable development. Moving on to the next stage, which is called emerging agenda. So here you already have a high commitment, but still low capacity. This high commitment can be new or renewed, but staff resources, buy-in and or knowledge are still lagging behind. And higher commitment does enable a widespread opportunity or pool of opportunities for staff to engage, with the key challenge being to change an established culture and practices. Some key factors or characteristics in this stage include that the national or international context supports the adoption of sustainability means, for example, in the form of a government push. But in this stage, it is also somewhat common that many staff lack a full understanding of sustainability and what it means for their particular role in the institution, which might result in weak cultural resonance. Now, if we have a look at the desired stage of so-called integrated impact, here you do have an entrenched commitment which enables widespread staff engagement and therefore a fully fledged adoption of education for sustainable development, and an established staff resource to provide ongoing support and engagement. Key factors in this stage are that sustainability aligns strongly with the institution's identity and purpose, and sustainability is embedded in the institution's strategies. It can also mean that permanent structures, for example, staff roles or program approval processes and venues, support education for sustainable development. It can also mean, another key characteristic of this stage is that staff engagement is comprehensive and at a high level, and there are only small pockets of disengagement or rejection of the agenda. But, so to not finish with a peak and assume that nothing comes after that, the group has also identified a 4th stage, which is defined by high capacity but already low or lowered commitment, which the term declining support. Here, strong levels of staff knowledge and buy-in are compromised by low strategic commitment. This can be, for example, due to a change in leadership. So this will often occur if sustainability suddenly drops down on a university's strategic agenda. This can be also due to external influences, for example, in the national context. And key characteristics of this stage are that low strategic commitment may lead to widespread but uncoordinated action in silos, creating diversity but missing out on collaboration. It can also mean that there's high dedicated sustainability staffing or resourcing levels, which may be temporary and subject to reallocation of resources. So this was just a very quick look into one of the very interesting aspects that the report outlines. There are many more, so I highly encourage you to read the full report. We also have a couple of speakers in our webinar from this thematic peer group on the environmental sustainability of learning and teaching. We do have among us Elena Luppi, from the University of Bologna in Italy. She is Director's Delegate for Innovation in Teaching and Learning. We also have another group member here, which is Michelle O'Dowd, the Sustainability Officer of the National University of Ireland, Galway. And we have another speaker here, Antonia Hayward, who is the Sustainability Advocate, a very interesting title that she will explain later, from the Montfort University in the UK. And you have already met my colleague Alison Morris-Rowe from EUA, who will pop up a couple of more times in this webinar to explain some selected survey results. Okay, and at this stage, I would like to hand back again to Alison for a very quick summary of one central survey outcome. Alison?
Sorry, my mic was muted. Thanks, Helene, very much. So I'm going to I have a few slides, if that's okay, to present some of the key findings from the survey. So as I said, we asked institutions about what greening measures and activities were being carried out in their institutions. And what we found was that this tends to be an institution, there tends to be an institution-wide perspective when it comes to these activities. As you can see, those who have greening measures in place, in 75% of institutions, it's actually in place, across the entire institution, rather than being driven by individual faculties or departments. Now, we have many different examples of greening activities that are in place. I can't name them all here, unfortunately. I suppose it comes as no surprise that almost 70% of institutions have a comprehensive policy for recycling and waste management. No surprise either, because of the pandemic, that over half of institutions now have provide digital tools for remote working. But also really interesting to see that almost 50% of institutions actually have a comprehensive policy in place on partnerships with other higher education institutions in this area. What was really encouraging to see as well from the survey results is that over 60% of institutions actually have a greening strategy in place. Now, this tends to be an overarching strategy with greening being embedded in that strategy. But there were also strategies specifically on greening, like a standalone strategy, and also strategies on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is extremely interesting, as you will see on the next slide as well. So out of those that have a strategy in place for greening, almost 70% of them actually link them in some way or shape or form to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Also, there is a tendency to link strategies on greening to national policies and initiatives. And we were provided with many examples of these national policies, and we're actually putting together a database of all these policies and are really looking forward to exploring them in more detail. Now, it might seem like a low number here. For example, only 16% of institutions said that they linked their strategy to the EU Green Deal. But we see this as being quite promising, in fact, because the EU Green Deal, if I'm not mistaken, was only presented for adoption at the end of 2019. So it's relatively new. So the fact that institutions are already linking their greening strategies to the Green Deal is promising, according to us. Now, my one slide on embedding greening in learning and teaching activities then. So I didn't include all the different types of learning and teaching activities which include greening, as there were just too many. So I just selected a few interesting ones. But I think what's really key to highlight here is that in general, it tends to be more common to embed greening as part of sustainability or the Sustainable Development Goals overall into learning and teaching activities, rather than just focusing on greening specifically. What we found interesting as well is that whereas in the past this might have been restricted to extracurricular activities, we now see that it really is becoming a growing priority for institutions. So this is something I mentioned on an earlier slide as well, but almost 60% of institutions now have a dedicated elective module available to all or most students on sustainability, which includes greening. And what's really encouraging to see as well is that at over 60% of institutions, they are actually considering greening as part of sustainability in curriculum reform. So we see that this is becoming more and more important, and we're looking forward to, following this closely in the future. So I think that's all from me now. I'll be popping up again later.
Thank you very much, Alison. And with this, I would like to hand over to our speaker from the Learning and Teaching Thematic Peer Group, Elena Luppi. Elena, before you start, could you perhaps reflect quickly on what Alison just presented? Would all of these greening activities and measures that you just presented apply at your institution? Does the University of Bologna do all of these things, or do you have any particular focus when you address or try to address and tackle sustainability issues at your institution?
Thank you, Elena. Thank you to the European University Association for this seminar, and good afternoon, everyone. Well, I will focus on a strategy that we developed in the last few years, and that allow to go further in our projects related with sustainability on the many areas of impact of our university, and in particular I will focus on teaching and learning. We have decided, in order to place sustainable development at the core of its mission, we have decided to integrate the 17 goals in our strategy, more in general and more in specific, from the strategic plan to any single project, action and activity that we develop. And in particular, since 2016, we systematically monitor our progresses towards SDGs through an early report on Sustainable Development Goals, which is a public document providing a reading of our contributions in favor of the SDGs. And we developed a website called Alma Goals that you can see, showing all the contribution and commitment of University of Bologna in relation to teaching, research, third missions, and institutional activities. And we developed a set of metrics specially formulated to match and integrate SDGs within any institutional university procedure and documents. And so this has made possible to develop this strategy based on Agenda 2030, 9 goals and 26 targets in the strategic plan. And this kind of report, which became a method of work for any of us, as I told you before, has an impact on teaching, research, third mission, and governance. And apart from these different fields, the fact of reporting any activity according to the SDGs make possible a transversal look at all these areas of the work of university, which are strictly interconnected. And in particular, we worked a lot on teaching and learning. And well, apart from a certain number of teaching programs focused on sustainability that we have as any other university, this approach makes possible to promote the transversal nature of SDGs value. And so more value has been given to minor, for example, to transversal teaching activities dealing with the SDGs. And the number that you can see here in these slides correspond to the number of course units developing SDGs. What has been done is that any single professor or lecturer has been asked, do you develop SDGs in your teaching activities? Do you consider that your learning goals are coherent with any of the SDGs? And so SDGs have been embedded in teaching and learning programs and in the syllabus in particular. Then, of course, we also give value to the reporting research projects according to the SDGs. And and third mission and teaching projects. And here again, we have a strong emphasis on all the activities related with third mission, which can improve the presence of sustainability in teaching activity. In particular, many European projects with an impact on learning and teaching have been developed under the lifelong learning program, in particular the Erasmus+. Many projects has been developed. They increase the innovation in teaching and learning related with sustainability. And just to show how the report is made, topic by topic, so SDG by SDG, all the activities are presented, facts and figures, but also narratives. So anyone can see the cross-cutting, the connection between the different actions. And I end with empower all women and girls, which represent one of the most transversal, maybe, of the SDG, which can really put together teaching and learning activities from many different areas. So this is a very ambitious project, that we said, but also it has been very, very effective to make, to introduce the culture of SDGs in our university. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elena. I do see that we already have a question in the Q&A section, kickstarted by our co-speaker, Alison. However, I do see that we are running a little bit behind schedule. So while I do encourage everybody in the audience to post questions in the Q&A section and like other questions by clicking on the little thumbs up, give it a vote. I would like to go right away to the next slide, or the next survey results sneak peek by Alison. So we ensure that towards the end of the webinar, we still have enough time to address questions from the audience.
Thanks, Helene, and I'll be very quick. So we also asked the survey respondents about the drivers of greening activities in their institutions, and they ranked them from being very important to not important at all. Now, I can't show you all the data, but I just selected some of the most important drivers of greening activities. And what kind of really struck us when going through the data was that these are really internal. Internal drivers really are considered to be the most important. So as you can see here from the graph, for over 50% of institutions, institutional values, leadership engagement, and student and staff engagement were considered to be the most important drivers of greening activities. And more so than, for example, system-level policies and guidelines, or system-level benchmarks or indicators. So all this really just to underline the crucial role of students and staff in driving greening activities. And I'll hand back to Helene now.
Very much. That was really ultra quick. So we can continue right away, and I would like to ask Michelle to please switch on her camera and microphone, because we are continuing with your part. Michelle, are you with us? Okay, yes, there you are. Yes. So could you perhaps quickly reflect on what Alison just presented? Would this kind of situation also apply at your institution? And could you also just generally explain what your institution does in order to approach its sustainability efforts with regard to student involvement? How are students getting into the boat?
Great. So Tíoríomh fad, thanks Helene, August Mila Buchas as often Jesh Intach Lard Super Fad and Shania. Hello everyone, and thanks for this wonderful opportunity to speak to you all this afternoon. I'm going to speak about the environment and sustainability of teaching and learning, drawing on our experiences at NUI Galway, with a specific focus on the student cohort. And also, NUI Galway was a member of the European Universities Association Thematic Peer Group, examining the environment and sustainability of teaching and learning over the last year. So I'm going to draw on some of the findings there. And could I acknowledge two of my colleagues from NUI Go as part of this work, Professor Paula Doherty and Dr. Geisha Kinderman. So just firstly, a little bit about NUI Galway. So NUI Go is located on the west coast of Ireland. We're one of the oldest universities in Ireland. We're a comprehensive research-led university. We deliver our teaching and our research to our 4 colleges, our 19 schools and our 5 research centres. And our mission is that we are for the public good. We're here for our students, we're here for society, we're here for the planet. So as an institution, we are committed to sustainability. Sustainability is one of our 4 core values, and it is a key pillar of our strategic plan. Our strategic plan, shared vision shaped by values, is built on our values. And these values emerged through extensive campus-wide consultation. And interestingly, that value of sustainability emerged because of the very strong student voice. Now, as an institution, we're also a signatory to the SDG Accord. And what that means is we have committed publicly to align all our major efforts to the SDG goals, targets and indicators, including through our education and research, our operations, our planning and our engagement activities. So the day we launched our strategic plan for the university, our university president signed the SDG Accord. Now, we're also a non-Taishke Green Campus Ireland awarded site, awarded to us on behalf of the International Foundation for Environmental Education. And this green flag, I suppose, recognises many years of hard work, promoting best practice in sustainability across 5 theme areas: energy, water, waste, travel and biodiversity. Now, our overall sustainability work in the university is driven by the CUSP team. And CUSP is a multidisciplinary, voluntary team of students and staff from across the university and community partners, all working together with the common vision of establishing the university as a leading role model for sustainability. Now, our overall approach for embedding sustainability into the campus is based on a learn, live, lead model. And really what that means is we're trying to embed learning about sustainability into all aspects of our teaching and learning so that everyone that comes to campus at NUI Galway, they learn about sustainability. Then aligned to that, we're trying to set the campus up that we live more sustainably in everything that we do. The food that we eat, the energy we use, how we manage our waste. And I suppose the idea is because we're learning about it and we're living it, that should position us to be the role models and leaders in terms of translating that sustainability agenda beyond the campus walls and into our local communities. Now, the CUSP team itself is divided into 6 working groups aligned to this learn, live, lead model. And each working group has a set of aims, objectives and targets to achieve by 2025. And our overall programme of work is set out in our recently launched NUI Galway Sustainability Strategy 2021 to 2025. So what role do our students play in our sustainability journey? And really the answer to this question is that our students play a central and a leading role. And we can see this if we look at our sustainability terms of reference. So that CUSP team I mentioned a few minutes ago, you can see that that CUSP team includes, in terms of membership, our student union president, our student union vice president, and representatives from student-themed societies. Those 6 working groups, each of those working groups contain at least 2 students. And we have also recently established a University Sustainability Advisory Board to provide strategic oversight of the university's commitment to sustainability. And again, if you look at the makeup of this board, it includes the Dean of Students and our Student Union President. Now, our overall approach for embedding sustainability into the campus, how do we involve our students? So I suppose the first thing I could say is that in terms of teaching and learning, we recognise that our students can learn about sustainability in 3 ways: through the curriculum, the co-curriculum and the hidden curriculum. And with the curriculum, our strategy very much here is to measure and increase sustainability content in the curriculum. And how do we increase content in the curriculum? So the kind of things we're doing here is developing new sustainability focused modules and programs, integrating sustainability content into existing programs, and increasing the extent of sustainability learning outcomes in academic programs. So an example here would be our new Introduction to Sustainability module. This is an interdisciplinary module that provides students with a broad overview of key topics relating to environmental, social, economic sustainability. Because we recognise that addressing sustainability is complex, it involves addressing a range of environmental, social, economic challenges. Sustainability cannot be viewed in a one-dimensional way, so we've developed a multidisciplinary approach. And content within this module ranges from, the history of globalisation, green buildings, global economic trends. In terms of co-curriculum, this is very much about embedding sustainability across the entire student experience. So we see sustainability becoming part of recruitment material, sustainability as part of orientation programs, sustainability embraced by our clubs and societies. We have a sustainability working group in the student union, and also volunteering opportunities in the area of sustainability. We've also recently developed Student Sustainability Leadership Awards to foster student leaders in sustainability, where students have an opportunity to intern with the CUSP team over the summer months. And then hidden curriculum. I suppose this is how students inevitably learn about sustainability just by the way that we do things. So for example, it could be a dashboard coming into a building showing how much energy or water that building uses. A biodiversity trail on the campus celebrating our link to nature. It could be a biodiversity action plan that sets out to enhance pollinators on the campus. A levy on a single-use cup, water filters to reduce single-use plastic bottled water consumption, activities and actions in the area of sustainable transport, waste segregation, food sustainability initiatives. So just by the way we do things, our students learn about sustainability. So as I come to the end of my talk, just some closing points on the environmental sustainability of teaching and learning. I think the first thing I would say is that we need an institutional commitment to sustainability, but it's important to say that commitment alone is not enough. That needs to be matched by adequate funding. We also need leadership for sustainability, strong, visible leadership at all levels within the institution. But that leadership alone is not enough. That needs to be matched by a bottom-up approach, student voice, action, activism. Student voice is absolutely key in the transition to a sustainable campus. And in terms of teaching and learning, I think it's important to say that we need to go beyond the curriculum and embed sustainability through extracurricular and non-curricular contexts, but actually to comprehensively incorporate the sustainability agenda into teaching and learning. We cannot be confined to the sustainability remit of the institution or to the student cohort. Sustainability needs to be extended to include a university-wide holistic approach, engaging students, staff and partners in all areas of activity. This includes teaching and learning, operations, planning, engagement, and this is borne out in initiatives at the global level that are seeking to celebrate the critical role that education has in delivering the Sustainable Development Goals, for example. An example here would be NUI Galway being a signatory to the SDG Accord. So, Sinead Meis Tála Rágam, that's all I have to say. I would end by saying it's not easy being green, and if anyone has any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Yes, questions to Michelle, please address them in the Q&A section, and we will get to them in just a few minutes. But before that, I would like to give the stage to our third speaker from the Thematic peer group, Antonia Hayward. I do have to say that Antonia herself has not been part of the TPG as such. Her predecessor at the Montfort University has, though. So Antonia, Michelle has already addressed the student voice, student involvement, and its central role in bringing forward a sustainability agenda at an institution. You yourself, you are a student, but you are also a sustainability advocate at the Montfort University. Can you please explain a bit more what your role is and how it relates to other institutional actors that are involved with the sustainability topic?
Yes, thank you. So as said, I am Antonia Hayward. I am the sustainability advocate at De Montfort University. So my role, what is it? It's to help embed sustainability across the entire university through education, buildings, all university practices. And I do this alongside the sustainability team. So as said, I am a student. I am doing my placement year with the university. So this is in between my second and third year on my course. And for this particular role, this is the second year it has been running. So the team consists of 2 full-time members of staff. And then we have a couple of other interns alongside me as well, who do a shorter term internship for 6 months, and that is a part-time role, and they have been running those for 10 years now, which is really good. So our role and the team sits in the Estates and Facilities Directorate at DMU, which is a very, very useful area to be put in because we're alongside waste and energy and the project teams that are in charge of making new buildings. So we can sit there and collaborate with them and make sure sustainability is embedded throughout the entire of those processes, which is a really fantastic opportunity. So the reason my role was created, so for the sustainability team, I'm an extra resource. I can support in meetings, embedding in projects all across the university. I'm kind of all-round helps and resource for them to work with. They also want to increase in student engagement in sustainability, and this was a really good way of doing that. And also for me, I give a student perspective on projects, and I can see it from both the student and staff side, which isn't always so obvious if you're on either side of it, and can provide opportunities of kind of how a student would see it and how to access and reach students in different ways, because it's very easy in universities to kind of, I think as a student, to miss things if you're not looking in the right areas. So if you don't actively seek it, how can we reach those students who wouldn't necessarily see it? For me personally, also, this placement year is about building skills and improving my own development, just as in a general sense for when I go into the workplace, and also seeing how sustainability is actually embedded in a large scale organization. So not just specific to what my course would teach me, which I'm a part of textiles design, which is going to be about the materials and the processes involved in that, but also if I work in a company, how does that impact the buildings, the general running of day to day, those kind of areas. So as the university, we take part in a lot of different areas, and me personally, I've helped supported on a lot of different projects throughout this. So I'm just going to give a few projects that we've been done recently and had achievements on and have recently completed. So for those who've never heard of Responsible Futures, they provide, the SOS UK, they provide a toolkit for universities to work towards, which is criteria which is spread across the entirety of the university and the SU, or Students' Union. These are different sustainability criteria. This will be through teaching. It's a good reminder for us to update our policies and working practices. And it's kind of every 2 years it's reassessed and you become reaccredited with it. And we have successfully been reaccredited again this year. And I was a part of the audit process. What is quite unique about Responsible Futures as well is the audit is done by our own students, and they come in and train our students on doing that as well, which is a really nice opportunity for getting the student engagement. Because in student engagement, as I think Michelle mentioned earlier, the student voice is very powerful in the universities, and it's really interesting to hear what the students want. And actually for pushing things through, a lot of the time it's very useful to have the students say, we are interested in this and we would like this. Other things I took part in, the university submitted for the Green Gown Awards. We had 5 finalists, 1 winner and 2 highly commended from that. And these were projects all across the university through learning, and actually master's projects from specific students and all across there. Something we do, which we have a formal, informal and subliminal curriculum that we try and target across the university. And for the informal curriculum, which will be things like events, one of the ones we're looking to do to spread out more is carbon literacy training. So we ran a student and staff carbon literacy training a few months ago. And going forwards, we're going to do some more and also expand that into the rest of other universities nearby, school and education in the local area as well. And I'm going to help present and teach that as well. We also did a conference with the RCE, RCE East Midlands UK. They ran the conference this year, which was very successful, which was talking about being a part of RCE, but also had topics on sustainability in fashion, and had quite a wide breadth of how to embed it into education for sustainable development. And then the final one, so we have each year there's an Sdg Teaching where staff are pledged to teach, include the SDGs in a specific week in some of their modules to their students. And the aim is to reach as many students and have as many staff as take part as possible. And this year we were in the top 10 ranking for the number of staff and student engagement. So as a bit of a roundup, my role, the main aim of it is to try and engage students and bring and spread sustainability in every aspect. So even if it specifically doesn't relate to your course, for example, a student can still be exposed to it and learn about it throughout all the work that they do. And for my role in particular, it's given me an opportunity to learn about sustainability earlier, and it's quite interesting because my role, I found out about it through the placement team, But because of the EDS work that the university does, because my particular course has a high level of sustainability in it, I felt I had the confidence to then apply for this role. So it's a nice full circle moment where I can now come back and help improve that further so others can have the opportunity that I did of feeling confident in learning about sustainability and actively engaging in it when they leave the university. But yes, so thank you for your time. I will pass back to Helen.
Thank you very much, Antonia. And now I would like to ask all of the other speakers to switch on their cameras, please, because now we are starting the taking of questions from the audience. We already have quite a list under the Q&A section. And I will just go ahead and take the most popular question, which is addressed to Elena. Elena, are you with us?
Yes. Can you see me?
I cannot see you, but maybe it's just my screen. Ah, there you go. Okay, there you are. Good. So, Elena, Alison from the same screen would like to know if you make any modules on greening or the Sustainable Development Goals mandatory at your institution.
If you're talking about the transversal ones, no, they're not mandatory, but we have some training programs, yeah, some master where of course you have a lot of contents related, yeah. But the transversal teaching activities focusing on sustainability are not mandatory, no. Unfortunately, I would say. Not yet, maybe.
Okay, thank you very much. And I would like to do a little bit of a round, so to give everybody questions. So I will not go strictly by votes. Michelle, there's a question for you in there. How do you actually describe research with impact in your model? More precisely, how is impact evaluated?
Yeah, so I suppose for us, we would recognise that the Sustainable Development Goals provide an ideal framework to show impact as a university. And just recently, we started reporting under the Times Higher Societal Impact Rankings. So we're work in progress. You know, the first year we reported under the rankings, we just reported under 1 SDG, SDG 3, good health and well-being. We moved up to 4 the second year, and this year we submitted on 9. So really, I suppose in terms of impact, we would see the SDGs as a framework. It's a nice framework for us because our model is based on learn, live, lead. And the impact ranking framework, it's not just on research, or it's not just on, you know, it's a very holistic approach. So you're looking at your impact in the community, as well as operations, as well as sort of the teaching and learning and the formal curriculum. So that's how we're approaching that.
Okay, thank you very much. Answers are very sharp, so we might actually get all through the list of questions. There's something for Antonia. I see that my colleague Henriette has already answered it, but perhaps would still be nice to hear from you in case somebody misses the answer. The question is there a network for student sustainability advocates in the UK or internationally?
Oh, it's an interesting one because student roles vary from each university. So I know some people will have student roles which are more kind of ambassador roles, so it's kind of more voluntary. Some will have paid internships. It really depends from institution to institution. I've started to build a bit of a network within this, in the sense that when I take part in some of the SOS's projects and things, they will include staff members and also connect things like the student unions. So a lot of their students will come along and their ambassadors will be a part of them, but I don't think there's necessarily a set group, if that makes sense, already out there.
Okay, thank you very much. Just for those who missed a comment, so my colleague Henriette just typed in there for information. In case anybody wants more information, SOS International supports student and youth groups globally to lead on sustainability and social justice. And they will also speak very conveniently at the next EUA Green webinar, which is taking place tomorrow. We will share with you the link later on through the chat. Then the most popular question is, if I remember correctly, it was addressed to Elena, or at least it was posted very shortly after Elena's presentation. And the question is from Jamie Goggins. Has the response from the course owners been validated by, for example, searching the learning outcomes and model description for specific keywords linked to the SDGs?
Yeah, they have been validated within the teaching program group of teachers. So there's a coordinator and a group of teachers who discuss all together then in order to give a kind of collective approval of the choice they made.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm browsing for... Yes, here's another question for Michelle. Michelle, this is from Steve Kaiser, if I'm pronouncing this correctly. I'm interested in the third mission you identify. Do you see students being agents of change in the world outside in the university or outside the university?
Yeah, so I suppose to answer that, firstly, at the strategic level, like our overall strategy for the university is about equipping students with the knowledge and skills to become sustainability role models and leaders. So sustainability is a core pillar of that strategy. Our mission as a university, we're for the public good. So that's at the strategic level. I guess at the operational level, a number of our programs would kind of try to equip students with those knowledge and skills. So for example, the Community Knowledge Initiative at NUI Galway that involves pedagogies around service learning, community engaged research, volunteering, and I suppose initiatives as part of those programs would be focused in terms of learning objectives to equip students with those knowledge and skills. So the third mission is there in terms of, let's say, co-curricular experiences, but then also about embedding sustainability across the entire student's experience. So we put a strong focus on sustainability as part of our clubs and societies. So we have a lot of sustainability themed societies in the university, and our students are playing a phenomenal role in those societies, from organising, you know, energy events open to the public, green events, plastic-free initiatives in the area of biodiversity, food sustainability, beach cleanups, you know. So both at the curricular and non-curricular level, I would say that yes, we are committed there.
Okay, thank you very much, Michelle. I have a question here that is addressed to all panelists. And it says, how do you see the role of international institutions in this work towards greening higher education, the higher education sector? What kind of support would be the most welcome or useful from international institutions? Who would like to start on this? Any first thoughts? Knee-jerk reactions?
I can go first. I think in terms of international institutions, I feel sustainability is such a collaborative experience for everyone. So even just collaborating with the universities in your local area, the kind of knowledge and resource you can share. I think with international, because everyone has their own setups, their own kind of challenges with it, I think something that might be hugely impactful to someone else might be less so, but actually still sharing that knowledge and passing the knowledge between the institutions would still be just as valuable, because you never know what barriers might come up as we progress with improving sustainability. So I think in terms of international, it's really good just to share and collaborate.
Okay, thank you. I think Alison wanted to react as well.
Yeah, thanks, Helen. That's really interesting what Antonia said there. I just wanted to highlight the key role of international partnerships, for example. One of the areas we're working on at the moment is digitally enhanced international partnerships. And for example, how universities are working together to create international campuses or to provide more virtual mobility experiences. So we think that this will become extremely important over the, in the future, over the next decade or so, to really become truly carbon neutral and to, I suppose, not rely 100% on physical mobility, although we don't want to see that disappearing at all. So it's just to highlight that.
Okay, thank you, Alison. Yes, Michelle?
Yeah, so I suppose SDG 17, partnership collaborations for the goals, you know, the goal that holds all the rest of the goals together. So I think partnerships and collaborations are absolutely key. The experience at our own university is that it has been hugely significant for us signing the SDG Accord. You know, this is, I suppose, a higher education commitment that universities make to each other to embed these goals in absolutely everything that they do. So it's that piece where you're extending sustainability beyond the curriculum, beyond research, into everything you do, operations, planning, engagement activities. And for us, the fact that our university president signed that SDG Accord the day we launched our strategic plan for the university, you know, a very public institutional commitment to sustainability, and that has been hugely valuable to us in terms of progressing the sustainability agenda in our university.
Yeah, I agree. If I can add, I agree with Michelle, because I think that the nature itself of SDGs make the reflection very international, I would say, and this has been proven in the work that we did in the group. And at the same time, international projects, the call themselves made possible to invest more and more and to embed SDGs and sustainability in research, teaching and learning, and institutional projects.
Thank you all. I have another question here, which is not addressed to one particular speaker, and so I will just open it to all of you. And I think it's quite interesting because it connects to what the thematic peer group decided to approach when it was faced with the question of environmental sustainability. It decided to use the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals as a basis because they are a tool of talking about sustainability in a connected way, in a holistic way. And the question from the audience goes as such: many universities' sustainability initiatives tend to focus solely on environmental criteria than others, such as economic criteria or social criteria. Would you please comment on this? Does anybody have any reactions on the connection? Yes, Alison?
I'd actually really like to hear from the three institutional representatives after, if they have anything to say on this. But I just wanted to point out that what we discovered was that this wasn't always the case, so that some institutions that apply this kind of holistic approach, yes, they focus on sustainable development goals, but sometimes they focus on many of the sustainable development goals, in fact, and not just the ones that link that focus on greening specifically. So we are seeing that universities are in fact focusing on sustainability more globally, including social justice, sustainable cities, economies. So I don't think it's as narrow as that. But I'd love to hear from the others if they have anything to say.
Yeah, I can go next. So personally, from De Montfort's side, we use the SDGs and everything. We've just been once again, we are the global hub for Sdg 16, which is peace, justice, and strong institutions. So we do a lot of work of focusing around not just necessarily the ones that are environmentally focused, but also the other ones. So we have a group that are trying to decolonize our curriculum and decolonize anything in the university to make it, and there's like a whole group focusing on that. So we don't necessarily just focus on the environmental stuff. We do try and get into every aspect of the SDGs framework.
Okay, any further very quick reactions, because I'm realizing that we're already very close to the closing time of the webinar?
I suppose I would think that the SDG framework has been hugely beneficial in terms of extending the understanding of sustainability beyond environmental sustainability. Peace, justice, and strong institutions, gender equality as much a part of the sustainability conversation, as is climate action and life below water and life on land. So for us, but I guess the gap continues to be just training awareness campus-wide on the SDGs. You know, that's something that we're still working towards. You know, there still be a lack of awareness in many areas, just in terms of the SDG framework itself. And I appreciate that's probably a challenge in a lot of institutions, just getting that awareness out there. But the framework and interpreting sustainability or framing it on the SDGs has been hugely beneficial.
Yeah, just a few words to say that in our experience, we discovered that looking at their activities with the lens of SDGs, we discovered that there was more than greening. And maybe we didn't expect it at the beginning. And so maybe we need to start looking at our activities in this perspective. And we discovered that there is much more and there are a lot of connections.
Okay, thank you very much. I think those are beautiful and quite fitting last words. So all that is left for me to do is to thank you all for having taken the time to come here. I hope and I trust that the audience has gotten a couple of well, quite some food for thought and interesting ideas. Please do check again the Handouts section if you haven't done so already for further resources. We also have further webinars coming up. As I mentioned at the very beginning of this webinar, this is only one in a series of webinars that is taking place this week. Can we have the final slide, please? So we do have more webinars coming up. Fighting with the slides, okay. Okay, there we go. Oh no. Okay, so tomorrow is taking place the last webinar in this series of EUA Green Week webinars. It will be on the topic of university strategies and actions for environmental sustainability. And at the same time, we have another related but on a different topic webinar series going on, which is on universities and the future of scholarly publishing. Number 3 of this series will take place on the 8th of June, and it is called Quo Vadis Transformative Agreements. As usual, registrations are open for anybody interested, and registrations will remain open until the start of the webinar. Thank you very much, everybody, both to the speakers, to my colleague Alison, to the staff in the background, and especially to the audience for your many interesting questions that ensured a lively discussion. Thank you and have a nice afternoon.